Hey guys, welcome to Fun Learning. In this video, we are going to discuss about the anatomy of lungs in detail. With no further delay, let's get started. Lungs are a pair of essential organ of respiration lie in the corresponding half of thoracic cavity. Each lung lie within the pleural sac. Lungs are porous, elastic, spongy structures and crepitate to touch. In the intrauterine life, they are solid and sink when placed in water. Now let us discuss about the external features of lungs in detail. Now try to imagine the lungs as a conical shaped structure which has apex, base, two surface and three borders. Apex is narrow, apparent, whereas base is broad, inferior surface. And in order to remember the surfaces of lung, you have to remember the mnemonic CM. Whereas C stands for coastal surface, M stands for medial surface. This medial surface is in turn divided into anterior part and a posterior part. The anterior part is also referred to as mediasternal part, whereas the posterior part is also referred to as vertebral part. And in order to remember the borders, you have to remember the mnemonic pia mater. So, which is nothing but one of the layer in meninges, right? So, P stands for posterior border, I stands for inferior border, whereas A stands for anterior border. The anterior border is sharp. The anterior border of the left lung has deep cardiac notch. Because of the presence of this cardiac notch, left lung has projection, which is referred to as lingula. Posterior border, it is thick and rounded. Inferior border, the coastal surface and the medial surface are separated from the base by inferior border. Okay, now let us discuss about the fissures of lungs in detail. So this one is right lung and this one is a left lung. The right lung has two fissures, namely the horizontal fissure and the oblique fissure, whereas the left lung has only one fissure, which is nothing but the oblique fissure. Because of the presence of two fissures, the right lung has three lobes: superior lobe, middle lobe, and inferior lobe. Because of the presence of only one fissure, the left lung has two lobes, namely, which is nothing but the superior lobe and inferior lobe. The apex of the lung lie about 1 inch above the medial part of the clavicle. Base, which is semilunar in shape, the base of the lung is deeply concave to fit over the corresponding cupola of the diaphragm. The concavity of the surface is deeper on the right side due to the higher position of the right dome of diaphragm. Now let us discuss about the hilum of the lung and the root of the lung in detail. Hilum of the lung, which is a very important feature of mediasternal surface. So, as I said previously, lungs has two surfaces, namely coastal surface and medial surface. This medial surface is in turn divided into the anterior part and the posterior part. The anterior part is referred to as mediasternal part. Okay, ma? So, this hilum is more or like a door. So, it acts as a door via which all the structure enters and exits the lung. And this mediasternal surface, except at the hilum, this surface is covered by pulmonary and mediasternal pleura. Okay, now let us discuss about the root of the lung in detail. So, everyone will have a doubt. What is the hilum and what is the root? So, what is the difference between these two? So, here, hilum is a door. Okay, so via which the structures enters and leaves the lung, whereas the root of the lung is nothing but. So the root of the lung is formed by all the structure which enters and leaves the lung. Now let us discuss about the content of the hilum and the structure that forms the root of the lung. Principal bronchus in left lung. Eparietal and hyparietal bronchi in right lung. So what is eparietal and hyparietal? Now imagine this as a pulmonary artery. The bronchi which is present superior to the pulmonary artery is referred to as eparietal, whereas the bronchi which is present inferior to the pulmonary artery is referred to as hyparietal. Arteries, we have pulmonary artery and bronchial artery, and we have pulmonary vein and bronchial vein. We have lymphatic vessels and also we have pulmonary nerve plexus, anterior and posterior. Okay, now let us discuss about the arrangement of structure. So, from above downwards, we have eparietal bronchi, pulmonary artery, principal bronchus, inferior pulmonary vein. whereas this E parietal bronchi is present only in the right side of the lung, that is right lung only. From before backwards, we have superior pulmonary vein, pulmonary artery, I parietal bronchus with bronchial vessels, nerves and lymphatic vessels. Okay, this is arrangement of structure in the root of the lung. Now pulmonary ligament. Inferior to the root of the lung, the pleural sieve hangs loose for some distance. This portion that hangs down is called as pulmonary ligament. It consists of double layer of pleura with a little amount of connective tissue. Pulmonary ligament provide potential space for expansion when the pulmonary vein engorged with blood. Now let us discuss about the bronchopulmonary segment of the lung. The bronchopulmonary segment are well-defined wedge-shaped sector of the lung aerated by segmental or tertiary bronchi. Each segment is an independent respiratory unit by itself and is supplied independently by a single segmental bronchus. Each bronchopulmonary segment is supplied by a tertiary branch of the pulmonary artery and has its own lymphatic and nerves. Right lung. Now let us discuss about the bronchopulmonary segment of the right lung. So the right lung has 3 lobes, right? Superior lobe, middle lobe and inferior lobe. The superior lobe has apical, anterior and posterior bronchopulmonary segment, whereas the middle lobe has lateral and medial, whereas the inferior lobe has apical, lateral, medial, anterior and posterior. Okay, so you not remember that, you have to remember the mnemonic APOM. A stands for apical, posterior, anterior, lateral and medial. Then you have to write all this for the inferior lobe and add basal, கடைசியா. அவ்வளவுதான். Now let us discuss about the bronchopulmonary segment of the left lung. Left lung has only 2 lobes, right? Superior lobe and inferior lobe. So superior lobe we have apical, anterior and posterior, and lingula part is divided into superior and inferior. Okay, va? Inferior lobe has apical, medial basal, anterior basal, posterior basal and lateral basal. Okay, va? So this apical and posterior basal arise from the common stem. Hence we often together we call it as apico-posterior. Okay, va? And the medial basal is very small in space. So very இந்த மீடியல் பேசல் ரொம்ப சின்னதாக இருக்கிறதுனால சம்டைம் இந்த மீடியல் பேசலை நம்ம தனியாக சொல்லாமல் நம்ம அதை ஆன்டீரியர் பேசலோட ஒரு பார்ட்டாகவே நம்ம கன்சிடர் பண்ணிப்போம். அப்படி பார்த்தோன்னா லெஃப்ட் லங்கில் மொத்தமாக 8 தான் இருக்குது. ஸோ 8 bronchopulmonary செக்மெண்ட் தான் இருக்குது. இட்ஸ் நத்திங் பட் எபிக்கல், ஆன்டீரியர், போஸ்டீரியர், சுப்பீரியர் அண்ட் இன்ஃபீரியர். ஓகேவா? ஸோ இதில் எபிக்கல் அண்ட் போஸ்டீரியர் ரெண்டுமே காமன் ஸ்டெம்ல அரைஸ் ஆகுறதுனால நம்ம எப்படி சொல்லுவோம்னா எபிகோ போஸ்டீரியர் அப்படின்னு சேர்த்து சொல்லுவோம். அதே மாதிரி மீடியல் பேசலோட இடம் அங்கே பார்ட் ரொம்ப சின்னதாக இருக்கிறதுனால சம்டைம் நம்ம மீடியல் பேசலை ஆன்டீரியர் பேசலோட ஒரு பார்ட்டாகவே நம்ம கன்சிடர் பண்ணிப்போம். Clinical application. Segmental resection can be undertaken in case of benign neoplasm, TB that is restricted to one segment. Importance of bronchopulmonary segment in postural drainage. Excessive accumulation of secretion in bronchi. Drainage of such fluid is done by placing the patient in a position that favor the flow of such secretion. Good knowledge of bronchopulmonary segment is necessary in postural drainage. Now let us discuss about the arterial supply. So pulmonary artery and bronchial artery. So bronchial artery right lungla ஒன்னும் left lungla ரெண்டும் இருக்கும். This bronchial artery rises from the descending thoracic aorta and the bronchial artery supplies the wall of the bronchi till the respiratory bronchiole, wall of the pulmonary vessels, connective tissue of the lung and the hilar lymph node. And we have venous drainage. So bronchial vein. So this bronchial vein is interdivided into superficial set and deep set. Superficial set right lung is being drained by azagous vein, whereas left lung is being drained by left superior intercostal vein. Whereas the deep set will terminate into one of the pulmonary vein. So venous drainage ரெண்டு தான் இருக்கு, bronchial vein and pulmonary vein. இதை மட்டும் ஞாபகம் வச்சுக்கிட்டா போதும். Lymphatic drainage, superficial plexus drains the lung parenchyma and the visceral pleura, whereas the deep plexus drains the structure which forms the root of the lung. Nerve supply, we have anterior and posterior pulmonary plexus. So, idilla we have sympathetic nerve supply and parasympathetic nerve supply. Sympathetic nerve supply arises from the upper 4 or 5 thoracic sympathetic ganglia, whereas the parasympathetic nerve supply is being given by the vagus nerve. With this, I am completing today's video. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel.